Hi there. Thanks for joining us again today. We've got another great guest, and this week we have Rachel Cruze. Rachel used to be called Rachel Ramsey until she got married about 5 years ago, right, Rachel?
Four, but
Four?
yeah, going on five.
Moving toward five, hoping to get there. That'll be good. But Rachel is related to Dave Ramsey, who's a client and friend of ours, and she and her dad have written a book together that is coming out April 22nd. Is that right? We're a little ahead of that. Those of you who are from the best country in the world, Texas, will recognize that it's rodeo season here, and we're just full on. We're actually going in a little while. So if you're watching this in April, that's why we're wearing Lone Stars today. The book is called Smart Money, Smart Kids, and I believe there'll be a link right up under our screen to show you where you can go on Amazon to purchase that. So, Rachel, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Love to know some things about the book. I'd love to know just about what it's like to do a project with your dad before how is that? A lot of our clients actually do have family on staff and that sort of thing. Love to hear kind of the fun stories about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for having me on, William. I really appreciate it. But yeah, I've been working with Dad for close to 4 years now, full time. I would travel and speak with him when I was in high school. So early on, we had a cool relationship just in the work setting because I would travel with him on weekends and speak at his events. So when I came on board full time, my heart is so much for taking this money message to the next generation and getting it in the hands of, younger kids all the way up through college so they can get this information early. And so that's been my passion for the past 4 years. So Dad and I, we've been talking about this book for a while now because he's told me, Rachel, people are always saying to me, I wish I had known this stuff when I was younger, and saying, oh God, how do I teach my kids this so they don't make the mistakes I've made? So we've known that this has been a need out there. So when it came time to write the book, we were both really, really excited. And it's my first book, so I'm not like an author. Like that's not something I, even thought I would be. But as I was sitting down and, writing this book, it was pretty apparent that God's hand was really all over the project because it's turned into a good book, and I'm a little biased, obviously, but the project in of itself, yeah, it's so fun, and people get to hear my voice and Dad's voice, so you'll know the distinction between the two. And so a lot of people laugh at Dave's voice because he's the same as he is on the radio. So when you read the book, you very much get Dave Ramsey in there. So it's fun kind of comparing the two voices and seeing what we both say in both perspectives of the dad and then the kid, my perspective of the kid.
That's great. That's great. I'm one of those guys, I'm a little on the older end of the spectrum of your readership, but growing up, mom and dad, good parents, good people, did a good job raising me, never talked to me about money. I mean, at all. Like, I would see them put their offering check in the plate and say, so what's that all about? That's private. And, just kind of wonder what's going on here. So I don't feel equipped as a parent to know how to have those conversations. So this is going to be a great resource. Would love to know what would be one really great takeaway that comes to mind when you think of the book. If there's someone watching today that can't read the book, isn't going to, just needs a nugget of wisdom that you found in writing the book, what would that be?
Sure. Well, two things kind of come to mind. The first is kind of going back to what you just said about your own story. And my encouragement as parents read this book, or even if you don't read the book, when it comes to teaching your kids about money, you can start right now. No matter what your history was with money, no matter how you grew up, your kids are a clean slate. So you can start having those conversations with them, even though you don't feel equipped. And some parents, money is a very shameful topic. It's very intimidating. And they're like, I don't even know where to begin with this. But money, especially teaching your kids about money, it can be very simple, very easy, and in teachable moments every single day. So that would be my first takeaway is, as a parent, no matter whether you read the book or don't, start talking to your kids now. And then the second thing would just be intentional. I mean, all through the book, we talk about finding those teachable moments throughout the day. And that takes being intentional to look for those moments. And so talking like the offering plate, like what a great time for your parents to talk to you about giving, not what they're giving, not the number of what's on the check, but just the spirit behind why we give part of our income back to the church, or why we give it, to a nonprofit or to a ministry. And so just finding those moments every day, but being intentional with finding those moments to talk to your kids about money.
That's great. We were sitting around the table not too long ago, and our 4-year-old wanted vanilla wafers for a snack, and I said, you can have 10. And 10, she lit up. So we laid 10 in front of her. I said, okay, this first one goes to God. The next 4 go to the president. And then you get 5. And she kind of looked at me like, you're kidding, right? And I was like, no, I'm not kidding. That's what you get. So maybe that's too far, but that's kind of how we roll.
Hey, well, I appreciate that because honestly, I've been traveling around for the past 4 years talking to, high school students and college students, and I meet college students who are telling me, oh, I'm going to make $80,000 when I graduate college. And I'm like, no, you're probably not going to make $80,000. And if you make 35, yeah, exactly. A good portion of that's going to taxes. You have to give some. You have rent. You have food. I mean, they don't realize what life costs. So, yeah, if it's through vanilla wafers or other means, hey, at least having those conversations.
That's right.
Incredible. Because some people.
As you think, you've studied this a lot and you are in tune with what's going on, what would you say are a couple, maybe 3 or so, of the big mistakes that you see parents making in teaching or not teaching their children?
Sure. Well, I think one mistake that I think has haunted my parents' generation and then into my generation and younger is this idea of just believing the lie that you have to have debt to survive. And a lot of parents teach their kids, to go take out student loans and to get a credit card to build your credit. And if you can, the only way to have a nice car is to get a car loan. They're teaching their kids something that's going to harm their kids, I believe, later in life. And so I think parents are confused sometimes on the topic of debt. And so we talk about that in the book, obviously, very heavily, and showing parents how to get out of debt themselves, but also how to teach their kids to be debt-free from the beginning. And so that's probably one mistake I see parents say is, it's okay, student loans are good, is a good type of debt, that kind of thing. So that's probably one thing. I would say number 2, that parents don't realize that more is caught than taught. And that their example is huge, that your kids, they're watching you. I mean, they're seeing what you're doing. Just like what you said, you watch your parents put a check in the offering plate. And I watched my parents put a check in the offering plate. I'd watch my parents budget. I would watch the way my mom would spend money at the grocery store. I mean, I can remember being like 7 years old and she pulled out 2 $100 bills out of a white envelope that said food on the front at the grocery store. And I remember thinking there at 6 or 7 years old that I told her, I was like, Mom, it takes $200 to feed us? You see a $100 bill, it's like $1 million to a little kid. And so just having those memories ingrained and just the way that they lived life, I think spoke louder than anything else. So that's, one thing for parents is the way you handle money. That's how your kids are assuming that's the right way. So an encouragement, a little bit of a challenge, I guess, for parents to, do the best with your money because your kids are watching.
So one topic, and feel free to answer or not answer.
Yeah, sure.
So one topic that we're dealing with in our house, we've got one sophomore in college, we've got a senior in high school, and we have 5 more kids underneath that. So I'm getting ready to take a pay cut for about the next 30 years. But what would you say is a great way to talk to kids who are high school age about how you are or are not going to help them with their college tuition?
Yes. Well, I think having the conversation first and foremost is so important, and to have it as early as possible. I mean, I tell parents when it comes to children, to your kids and planning college, as a couple, you want to try to do that as early as possible in your kid's life. But when your kid gets to be, freshman year of high school, that's when college, ACT, SATs conversations start happening around this topic of college. So I would say as a parent, let your kid know the expectation for them when they go to school, whether that they have to pay for everything, because that's okay, they can. College is not an entitlement. A child is not entitled to go to college and have it paid for. That is a blessing if parents do contribute, and that's it. So it's not a parent's responsibility or obligation to pay for college. So tell them, what you're able to provide if you are. And I think that conversation is just helpful. So as they go through school, they know, okay, I need to start saving money now for college. I need to really focus on my, my test score so I can get scholarships. I mean, all the above. So I would say just having the conversation of what they should expect at graduation and say, hey, this is how much we'll cover for college, or this is not what we're going to cover for college, but just so that they know. So I'm not mean for saying that assuming you're making good grades and assuming I keep making money as I'm making it, I'm honored to help pay for 4 years of public education. That is exactly the conversation that went in the Ramsey house. Yeah. Yeah. Mom and dad, they obviously live out what they believe. And so they were able to save up and pay for us, all three kids, to go to college. But the rules were we had to stay in state, we had to go to a public university, and we had to graduate in 4 years.
Okay.
And if we did not graduate in 4 years, we had to pay for everything above that.
I'm feeling all kinds of confirmation now. That's good. I'm feeling right.
I was the rebellious child, and we live in Tennessee, and so University of Tennessee is the main big university here. And so I remember telling Dad, I was like, I don't want to go to UT, I want to go to Auburn. Down in Alabama, that's where I want to go. And he was like, okay, that's fine. Just I'll pay for in-state tuition, and whatever the difference is, you get to pick up and pay.
Exactly.
So I remember going online as a junior in high school, typing in, Auburn University, and I saw, it costs 3 times as much to step over a state line to go to basically the same school. So I quickly said, go Vols, and I'll be in Knoxville in 2 years. Thank you for that gift.
That's fantastic. Oh, that's awesome. So, so reading over the book, tell me what you think church leaders' roles are in empowering kids and parents. I mean, how could church leaders, in your estimation of the church, kind of ratchet up the game a little bit? I know you've traveled all over and seen, and most of our audience is in some form of church leadership, either on the board or as a pastor. So what can we do from the pulpit or in the classroom to help this mission go forward?
Yeah, well, I would first say, my first inclination is to say, help your congregation figure out God's ways of handling money. And, not to do a shameless plug, but, Financial Peace University is an incredible class that literally walks families, walks people through this process of understanding what God says about money. I mean, you're talking everything from saving, giving, spending, debt, budgeting, everything, every resource you need in your life when it comes to handling your money is in that. So I would say first and foremost, as church leadership, take on the burden of teaching your congregation themselves how to be financially free and how to free up their income, because it's so tough, I think, to give. It's so tough to save, when you are in debt. And 70% of Americans, according to the Wall Street Journal, are living paycheck to paycheck. And it's incredible to think, what could the people of God do for the kingdom of God if they were completely debt-free? And so I think as church leadership to take on that burden and to help your congregation figure out God's ways of handling money and walking them through that. And then out of that, I think a lot of parents, once they get a handle on their own money, they then want to help their kids, and they want to turn around and say, okay, we've been empowered by this. So now I want my kids to have a better life than I even did. I want them to know this as early as possible. And so we call that changing your family tree, where every mistake doesn't have to be passed down generation to generation. And that's my story. I mean, my parents did the worst of the worst. They filed bankruptcy, and I was 6 months old when they filed. And so I grew up in a house basically coming out of bankruptcy, and Mom and Dad made it their mission, obviously, to figure out, okay, what do we do with our money? What we didn't work, so what do we do now? And so out of that, I'm now a product of a child, 26 years later, who gets the benefit of having that knowledge and understanding about money. So kind of a long answer, but yeah, I would say help your congregation get their own finances in order, and then I think it trickles down to their kids.
Well, and I'll continue the shameless plug. I mean, we work with churches all over the English-speaking world, and probably somewhere just south of 100 different kinds of denominations or types of churches, all kinds of ethnicities. And the one program that cuts across all lines and is in nearly all of our clients is Financial Peace University. So it's, one pastor said, William, I know it's the right thing to do. I know it's the biblical thing to do, but frankly, it pays for itself because our people start managing their money and they start tithing, and look what happens. So yeah, not to be crass about it, but definitely see that happening in a lot of churches, and would urge everybody to follow that advice. So Rachel, tell me, what was the inspiration for writing Smart Money, Smart Kids? What was the idea or the aha that made you say, we got to do this?
Well, I think it kind of stemmed from Dad first. I think, he realized, gosh, people always ask me 2 questions. Number 1, why is this not taught in high schools? And number 2, how do I teach my kids this? And so we knew that parents really did. They wanted a manual. They wanted a plan to say, okay, this is what you do to help your kids grow up in a house where they understand how to handle money. And so for me too, kind of like what I just said, I mean, I'm the product of a kid who grew up in a house where money was talked about and money was taught. And not perfect. My parents were not perfect. But now as an adult, I'm like, I can go out and win financially, not because I'm Dave Ramsey's daughter, but because Dave Ramsey's principles, they work. God's ways of handling money, it works. And so that's been my heart, is to help parents teach their kids. Because again, I, as the kid, saw that benefit. And so it's fun. And so in the book, I mean, we talk about the tactical stuff from working, giving, saving, spending. We talk about college, a whole chapter dedicated to college specifically. We talk about contentment. We talk about, gratitude and having a heart for your kids, for your kids not to be entitled. We talk about passing on your legacy to your kids and how to grow your kids up to have the maturity, the moral backbone to possibly support the legacy that you're making within your own family. And so we cover a lot of ground, and hopefully it's the answer to the question, how do I teach my kids about money, that most parents ask.
Well, last time I was up at the office there in Tennessee, there was just a lot of buzz about the book. It sounds like pre-sales are kind of more than you ever expected, and we're hoping the same for sales. And really hope, I'll hold it up one more time, Dave and Rachel, Smart Money, Smart Kids, comes out April 22nd, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And what's the best way for people to get that book? I mean, do you have a suggestion? Yeah,
we have a website, smartmoneysmartkids.com, that you can order from. You can go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, booksamillion.com. I mean, all of those, all their websites, all the stores will have the book. So anywhere you go, hopefully Smart Money, Smart Kids will be there.
That's fantastic. This really, not to be melodramatic, but really could change the country if people take it seriously, and appreciate you giving your life to it. It's clear that God's hands on you, and we're pulling for you and praying for you in every way.
Thank you, William. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for making the time, Rachel. I know you're busy. Take care.
No, absolutely. Thanks. Bye.